The morning the young cowboy stood on my porch with dust on his boots, trembling hands, and hope shining in his eyes, everyone expected me to laugh him off my land. My daughter was the brightest light in our valley, and he owned little more than an old horse, a weathered saddle, and a heart full of dreams. The neighbors whispered that love could never survive an empty pocket. But sometimes the richest man is the one who has nothing to hide and everything to give. That day, one simple decision would change not only my daughter's life, but mine forever. Before we continue, if you believe kindness is stronger than wealth and that everyone deserves a second chance, please like this video, leave a comment, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Light of Kindness. Your support helps us bring more heartwarming stories that remind the world hope still exists. The sun had barely climbed over the rolling hills when the stranger tied his horse outside our farmhouse. His name was Silas Mercer, a quiet cowboy who had worked on nearby ranches since he was a teenager. Everyone knew him as the man who never complained, never cheated anyone, and always showed up before sunrise. Yet no one thought he would dare ask for my daughter Marin Ashcroft's hand in marriage. Our ranch was not the richest in the county, but years of hard work had given us comfort. My daughter had grown up surrounded by green pastures, sturdy barns, and every opportunity a father could provide. After losing her mother years earlier, I promised myself she would never know hardship again. That promise slowly became a wall around my heart. Silas stood before me with worn clothes faded by countless summers. His hat had been patched twice, and his boots had seen more miles than most men could imagine. Yet when he looked at me, there wasn't a trace of fear in his eyes, only honesty. The town expected me to measure him by his bank account. They expected me to send him away before he even spoke. But I had spent my life judging cattle, horses, and harvests. I had learned that appearances often lied. As I watched the young man standing there, I remembered another boy from decades earlier. I had once arrived in this valley with little more than determination and empty pockets. The only difference was that someone had believed in me when nobody else did. People often forget where they came from once life becomes comfortable. Silas never begged for approval. He simply explained that he loved Marin more than anything in the world. He admitted he couldn't promise luxury or expensive gifts. What he could promise was that she would never face life's storms alone. Every sunrise would find him working. Every sunset would find him returning home to the woman he loved. His words carried no rehearsed charm. They carried truth. Inside the house, Marin waited anxiously, knowing her future depended on a father's judgment. She had inherited her mother's gentle heart. While others admired wealth, she admired kindness. She had seen Silas stop to help stranded travelers, feed hungry children before feeding himself, and spend freezing nights repairing broken fences for elderly neighbors without asking for payment. Money could buy comfort. Character had to be earned. The weeks that followed tested everyone. Some neighbors mocked my decision even before I made it. Wealthy ranch owners arrived with polished sons, expensive wagons, and promises of easy living. They believed marriage was another business arrangement. But I watched closely. One wealthy suitor shouted at a stable boy for a minor mistake. Another laughed at an old widow who couldn't pay her debts. Another boasted endlessly about land, cattle, and profits while barely noticing Marin herself. Meanwhile, Silas continued working quietly every day, never expecting praise. During a violent afternoon storm, flash floods swept across the valley. Several families became trapped as rising water destroyed fences and threatened livestock. Without hesitation, Silas rode directly into danger. Hour after hour he rescued frightened horses, carried children across rushing water, and helped elderly ranchers reach safety. He never stopped to ask whose property was worth saving. Every life mattered equally. When the storm finally passed, exhausted families gathered together, realizing one young cowboy had risked everything for people who had often looked down on him. Not once did he ask for recognition. That evening I walked across the muddy fields where Silas sat beside his exhausted horse. His hands were bleeding from broken fence wire, and his face was covered in dirt. Yet his first question wasn't about himself. He simply asked whether everyone else was safe. In that single moment, every doubt disappeared. A man who protects strangers without expecting reward will protect his family with everything he has. The following Sunday, our small church filled with curious townspeople. Rumors had spread across the valley that I was about to make a decision nobody expected. I stood before everyone and looked directly at Silas. The silence felt endless. Many expected rejection. Some waited to see humiliation. Instead, I smiled. I told him the words that changed all our lives forever. My daughter doesn't need a rich man. She needs a good man. The room fell completely silent before tears appeared in more eyes than anyone cared to admit. Maren rushed forward, unable to hide her happiness. The joy on her face reminded me that a father's greatest responsibility isn't choosing comfort for his child. It's choosing the person who will treasure her heart long after material things lose their value. Months later, the wedding took place beneath clear blue skies surrounded by wildflowers and golden fields. There were no extravagant decorations, no expensive celebrations, and no unnecessary luxury. What filled that day instead was laughter, gratitude, family, and love so genuine that even the hardest hearts softened. Years passed, and life wasn't always easy. There were seasons of drought, broken equipment, difficult harvests, and unexpected losses. But every challenge only revealed the strength of the family Silas and Maren built together. They welcomed children who grew up learning that kindness was worth more than gold. Neighbors who once doubted them began seeking Silas's advice whenever problems arose. They trusted his wisdom because it came from experience, humility, and compassion instead of pride. Looking back now, I realize that wealth fades, buildings grow old, and possessions eventually disappear. But goodness leaves a legacy that generations remember. I was once afraid my daughter would struggle beside a poor cowboy. Instead, she became the richest woman I have ever known because she was loved completely by a man whose greatest treasure was his heart. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, leave a heartfelt comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to Light of Kindness. Your support helps these stories reach people who still believe love, compassion, and second chances can change lives. Sparkle's special request: before this story ends, please comment, "A good heart is the greatest treasure." We'd love to know where you're watching from and what lesson touched you the most. Sometimes the greatest inheritance a parent can give isn't land, money, or success. Sometimes it's the courage to recognize true character when the whole world is blinded by wealth. And when we choose kindness over riches, love over pride, and integrity over appearances, we leave behind something far more valuable than fortune. We leave behind a legacy that time can never erase.